Okay. I think we should get started. It's 3:31. Call to order the meeting of the DEC work group meeting. I think we all know each other. I'm trying to find my agenda, but usually it's approval of the minutes from last month. Does anyone have any discussion about that or a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motions? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of approving the minutes from the last DEC meeting, please state by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we can move on from approval of minutes. Going off the top of my head, I think it's staff report next.
Sure, I can share the screen. If Luann, I think you need to allow me to share a screen with you being the host.
It should be ready now.
Okay, thank you. And all right, can you folks see our agenda? Okay.
Thank you.
Then we're all on the same page. Okay, real quickly with staff report, we did have our last quarterly CJCC meeting on November 12th. We're already looking ahead to 2021. So DHS Director Corpola will be our chair for 2020-21, and District Attorney Nodoff was nominated a vice chair for that same period. So just excited about looking ahead for the future. I think most of us are tired of 2020. So that's just exciting. We do have one more executive meeting on the schedule. That'll be December 9th. And we'll just be kind of making our plans for 2021. So that's it for staff report, unless there's questions. All right.
So the next item would be update on Dex Staffings. And so I was just curious if law enforcement and human services were able to get together and kind of run through some DEC cases that we had.
Yes, we sure did. When did we do that, Lori? 2 weeks ago?
It feels like 2 weeks, but it was probably even a month. But yeah, we did. Yeah.
It was right after the last
attendance.
time. Yeah, we met. Yeah, we did. We had some good attendance, and we were able to talk through quite a few cases. So it was good.
Did you have sheriffs and MPD there?
Actually, Kyle wasn't able to attend that one because something came up on like that last minute. He ended up having to take that day off. So it was Samson and Chad Merzinski. I don't think we didn't have anybody from the sheriff's department, did we, Laura?
Oh, I guess we didn't. But
No, I don't think we did.
Nope.
Yes, and then we basically talked with them in regards to the DEC mapping too. So explained to all of them in regards to what that was all about, and so everybody's on the same page, and have been invited to that too.
Did you see anything that needed to be worked on or changed based on those discussions?
Honestly, they really thought that everything was going well. There wasn't really too much that we talked about. The only thing that really came up, which I think is going to be something that probably will come out in our mapping as well too. But in regards to when parents get charged with child neglect, when that happens and when that doesn't happen, because there doesn't seem to be uniformity, I would say, in regards to that. So we talked about coming up with some different maybe considerations to take into account. Like, you know, for example, first time offense, first time, you know, that a kid tests positive for any type of substances, is that a charge of child neglect, or do you wait and see if they're going to, you know, work with human services and they're going to get involved in, say, family treatment courts and they're going to do different things? Or does it make a difference if they, you know, go tell you to pound sand and they're not going to work with you and they don't want to make any changes? Or does it make a difference if it's second time offense versus second or third, maybe, versus first? So we did talk through some of that and making sure, because I think the collaboration is really, really good between law enforcement and human services right on the front end. And then, you know, sometimes they might not be following up with each other on the back end after we're getting, you know, the hair test results back for the kids or for the parents, or, you know, things like that. So I think that was about the only thing that we thought we should probably shore up a little bit.
Okay, good. If there's not anything else on that, we can move to an update on outreach to schools. I think this was more based on our last meeting about potentially seeing what the different schools are doing to reach those kids who are certainly attending virtual school, and how the school counselors or other staff members who aren't seeing these kids in school as much, how they're still checking on kids to make sure if they're children who appear to be at risk, that we're not missing them. Were any of you able to touch base with any school?
Madam Chairman, I made contact, or I attempted to make contact. However, I guess because of what's been going on with COVID, they're a little bit overwhelmed and they haven't replied yet. So I'm going to, after Thanksgiving here, make contact with those that I know personally, maybe on their home phones, because I think some of them are going to be at home virtually, and then find out who the other ones are in Colfax and Elk Mound and Boyceville, and send out an email with a list of questions and see if I will get a response back then. So as of this moment, no. And I'm also going to be contacting principals.
Okay, perfect. Carrie or Lori, do you know, as far as our access calls coming in, are we getting a lot less from schools? Are you still getting them from schools? I know they're anonymous and so you can't disclose that, but are you able to determine, you know, if we're still having reports from schools?
The school is reporting. We went through a period of it being super quiet at the beginning of COVID, and then last week I presented at the county board, and I think we are almost at 600 calls for the year, which is down from the last 2 years. But many of them are mandated reporters from the school. So it's, you know, I think it increased a bit, and now I do worry about what will happen with kids being virtual again. And so one of the things that Carrie and I have talked to our staff about is that we have to be seeing these kids. You know, virtual is not acceptable just because, you know, they need eyes on them, and we need to be seeing them in their homes and keeping safe, you know, trying to be safe. But when school's not in session, we have to know that these kids that are at risk or that are involved in our system need to be seen.
Lori, did you happen to ask the question of them that I was attempting? And that is there a way that through virtual, we're able to come up with a way to determine how things are so that they're able to communicate if they're at home and they're not able to get out of the house?
Sheila, can you explain that more?
Well, one of the things that we had talked about last time is trying to determine how we were going to, if they were virtual and they were in the home and you didn't have people there on a daily basis, like at the guidance offices, the principals able to, or teachers observing them, how they were going to be able to feel like they had a place that they could communicate to let people know that things aren't okay. And there was that thought that maybe if they're virtual or if they're on a computer, was there some way, I don't know if it's a code I'm thinking of or what, if there was some way for them to reach out and say, come see me, or I need help, or something like that. And so
Sheila,
that was,
Lori was presenting to the Health and Human Services Board, not not anything
okay.
to do with the school board.
Okay.
So I think that's where the confusion is coming in.
Okay. Well, that's where I'm going to be headed. But if you guys have any thoughts about that or any questions that you think I should be asking them when I finally am able to reach them, that's, I guess, where we were trying to go with that, is to see how we could get in touch with those kids that need to be talked to.
It might be helpful for them to identify somebody that they can email. I think because that's a primary mode of communication for these kids. I know that's how some things have come to our attention. But that maybe they're identified with one contact person that is going to check on them weekly or whatever that might be, through an email chain or whatever. But I think that, because I know there's all these different rules about, if Zoom is used in each school district. I mean, that changes from school district to school district as far as cameras being on or not on. And so email, I think, is a good way to reach out to the kids.
Okay.
And so if there's a high risk family and the child is just not getting on Zoom, just isn't participating in online classes, I'm assuming that's probably what you see, they just don't show up. Is there anything that the school or the department's doing to check on them?
Well, I could answer that too a little bit. I know that at least at the high school level that they are still doing attendance. So if they aren't getting a way of finding out if they're attending the session, they have a way of following up on that, or they're putting them on a list to follow up on. So they are still trying to keep attendance for state DPI reporting.
I also know, Andrea, through, that Project Hope group that Eric Atkinson was heading up, that one of the divisions of that Project Hope group basically focuses on truancy. So they are talking about, in this group, they're talking about those kids that haven't quite reached our system yet, but that the school is really concerned about. And I know that between the school district and Mallory Zazenhaus, they have been doing some home visits. They have gone out and knocked on some doors just to check on some kids and say, hey, what do you need? Are you okay? What can we do to get you back engaged in school? And then those ones that just aren't participating at all, we still have been getting some truancy referrals on them as well. So, and we're, continuing to run those like we normally would. So we haven't gotten a lot of truancy referrals, but it's mostly for those kids really who aren't just not logging on. The school can just tell that they're just not doing anything.
Sure. And I didn't know that Project Hope was up and running. I guess I don't know much about it or what.
They basically started off, one of their big kind of work groups where they basically started was with the youth population. So it's a group of people from the school district and Tracy Erickson, juvenile court intake worker, the youth service officers, Eric Atkinson. So they basically come together. They're trying to figure out ways to, to engage these kids and basically get to these kids before they reach the youth justice system in a formal way through a delinquency referral or truancy referral. So they've talked about doing like some outreach in our community regarding getting these kids set up with mentors and different things like that, like how to get them engaged in the community. So I think, yeah, some cool things will come out of that.
It might be interesting if beneficial to have one of them join this group, to keep us.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
That's good. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Chief has he leads up our evidence-based decision-making work group, and we've spent quite a few meetings kind of talking about just the updates on what's going on with Project Hope. And while that is kind of a city-focused initiative, they did want to get those meetings back up and running with the youth action team. So it sounds like those are meeting. I did get an update. It doesn't sound like a whole lot's being done on the truancy side. I guess just from what I understand from Chief, and maybe that's because of COVID, and schools are really trying to get their arms around kind of what's going on there. But that's kind of the youth group's a newer development. And we can certainly try to kind of connect the resource officers to being part of this group. They're really looking at how they can divert and deflect youth prior to getting a formal referral or getting into kind of our human service / criminal justice system. And it sounds like that's been productive with just a few meetings, just really identifying those that might be at risk that wouldn't necessarily be identified earlier through other means. So
I think maybe that's something we should continue at our next meeting, just to keep an eye on that and see if there's anything that we can do to assist, with other districts as well. Okay, so the next item is finalized DEC MOU. And I think that was from our last meeting that was distributed by Sarah.
Yeah, so I just made a couple of concrete changes that we identified. We removed West Central Drug Task Force. We added Elk Mound Police. So just a couple changes there. I was hoping that agencies could double check their the appendix, so that protocol piece, to see if there's any updates that we need to make to that. So that was all sent back in the packet. I haven't heard, I think we did have Chad at our last meeting say there wasn't any law enforcement changes on the protocol side, but not sure about our human service partners.
I didn't see anything that we needed to change either.
Sarah, what do you need on that? Do we need to have new signatures then for that?
It probably wouldn't hurt for us to kind of send that around, get a renewed commitment to DEC, make sure we don't forget the acronym. And right, we do have a new sheriff, so I can start sending that around. I think, right, we were just waiting for any further changes. So if we don't have any changes, I think we can go ahead and get that signed if everyone's in agreement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, next thing would be to review our DEC website.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen again, so bear with me. All right, so you should be seeing the Dudden County DEC work group website. Do you guys see it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is fairly rudimentary at this point, but this is what Krista Vind with IT put together for us based on our conversations that we've had on the website. So it's just some basic information on the landing page, and then she created the tabs. So I gotta move my faces over here. So we got the DEC resources, which right now there's nothing on there. The DEC reporting, which is from our handout, really what to do when there's a report. So essentially she kind of copied and pasted this information over, so there shouldn't be too many, you know, we'll want to double check phone numbers and all that to make sure it's accurate, but we shouldn't have too many typos since the information was already previously vetted. DEC events, so there's nothing on this tab right now. And then the DEC documents actually has the local resources. This is the handout that we've been using, and then how to actually report a DEC case. So that's what is set up at this point. So just looking for some feedback, other things we want to add, change, enhance to this website.
I think it's a good start. I would rely on human services as far as, you know, DEC resources. You know, as far as events, we could put the, you know, when the national DEC training is going to be. I know I get emails that involves Sesame Street and DEC and Alliance. They have some good articles on there.
Yeah, they do. I was
Andre, would you
wondering-
want to send me, just kind of forward me one of those so I can take a look and get that information too?
I was wondering if that National DEC Alliance, that website, maybe that should be under resources. I don't know. What kind of resources are we wanting to put there? Local resources or?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could certainly go under that as well. Just the resources, something under there.
I think it will be helpful to take a look at it and then see what else we think should be added.
Yeah.
Because I think resources is pretty open-ended. We would want to, you know, identify maybe resources for adults or resources for kids. I think about like the foster closet that offers, you know, like our agency knows that resource for kids that go into foster care, but potentially they would be, you know, it's a resource that we utilize when we need all new things for kids or that, you know, so things like that.
Then under the DEC partner agencies, like I don't think the Bridge to Hope is one of our partner agencies, right?
Well,
I mean,
they do participate on this work group. They have a new staff, Alyssa Fahrenkamp. So she has been, you know, she receives our minutes and has attended a few meetings. I don't think we've heard from her a whole lot, but they certainly want to be an overt partner in this.
Okay.
So that was really taken from the membership of this work group. So, you know, we can clarify that commitment to be a partner in this endeavor, or we can remove it. It's up to us.
The last line in that needs to be taken out. Let me know if you have questions or need more information. I'll schedule follow-up in 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's like cut and paste right in there.
Yep.
Okay. We can also get our MOU under the documents section. So this link was sent out in the packet. So if folks do want to take some time and think about additional things that would be nice to have on here, and you can just shoot me an email and we can have Krista start to continue just to populate this for us.
Carrie or Lori, do you think we need a tab of, like how you can help, or, I mean, information about, I guess, supports the foster closet, maybe the mentor program, maybe we could link in Project Hope, or
Yeah, different ways to get involved in your community, or
donation, a
to-
place to donate. Yeah, I think that would be, I think like the Eau Claire County has that. Where, yeah, so I would like to take a look at theirs and see what else we can kind of gather from theirs.
I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, but overall, I think it's really
Yeah.
beneficial. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess we could.
I like it.
Is there more discussion, or should we move on to the next item? Okay, next item is the planning for the DEC case mapping session being a Zoom December 2nd from 1 to 4. So how are we doing that, Sarah? Are we all supposed to be present from 1 to 4?
Yes, if possible. So I did send a Zoom invite to the core group of what we've identified. We also want to ensure that those that are important to that conversation or can add to the conversation have an invitation. So I guess one of the things I was hoping is to get that list of attendees, and whether it's giving me the names or emailing me the names so I can ensure that they get the link to the Zoom and some information. But essentially, we've set aside 3 hours to really talk through a DEC case, kind of like all the ways DEC cases come to us, and then what happens to that DEC case along the way. Who touches it. So we're really kind of talking out loud and trying to pull information out of kind of different people and ask kind of what next, what happens next, who touches it. So what I was thinking, that it'd be nice to have like 2 folks to help facilitate, or just being able to really jump in. I think that's all of us need to be open to, like kind of calling people out or asking what's next or what about that. Because the experience we had with the sim mapping that was virtual is people are very quiet and they don't want to speak up. And that's kind of the opposite of what we want. We really do want people to feel open, and then they can start talking about what happens when, who they refer a case to and what happens next. So I just encourage, us as the core team to really kind of holler out if you know that we're missing a step, or that something is kind of needs to be added to that conversation, because that's what we're trying to really elicit, get out and on the table so we can start to map it. So I was thinking it, and Sheila and I already kind of offered to do some of the facilitation. So Sheila, I don't know if you're still interested, but I think between the 2 of us, we can, continue to ask what next, then what happens, then who touches it. So it's just really kind of keeping that conversation going. Since we are doing it on Zoom, it's nice that everything's recorded so we can kind of listen back. But one of the questions I have too is, do we want to do that real-time mapping? So we have somebody identified to start kind of mapping, rudimentary, until we can kind of finalize it, but to start mapping, because that's part of the visual that we would have if we really were all in a room, we would see that. So whether it's we try to record it on, this has that annotation feature, and we can start to record things live, or if that would just be too distracting and we want to do it with some, notes in the background, some sticky board notes, and just start drawing it as we go. So those are some things that I'm wondering about. And then, I thought about an agenda, and I think we don't We just know we've got enough time set aside and just to start pulling it. I didn't really know how much time to kind of put towards this, that, or the other, like the human service process, the law enforcement process, and then the DA process. But I think we want to be mindful to build in breaks. So maybe we don't have topics that we're switching to at certain times because we just really want to get to the end of the conversation and then move to the next mapping piece. But I think it's important that we build in breaks because 3 hours in front of Zoom, people are going to be really fatigued if we don't build in some breaks. So those are some of the considerations that I guess I'd like to just throw out there for our conversation. And then I think in addition to mapping is really we're identifying the gaps or the areas of weaknesses as we go as well. So we can kind of come back to those areas as we move ahead. So I'm going to pause talking for your guys' feedback.
If you want to do mapping, you like using a whiteboard or Post-its or whatever, would you want to maybe you and me meet together at the Judicial Center and utilize the whiteboard there and go ahead and Zoom there with our masks on and that? Or would you feel comfortable having some kind of an easel or a whiteboard behind one of us, and one of us does the notes and the other one does the talking? Or what are you thinking about in that regard?
Yep, that's a way we can do it. I think, you know, the Judicial Center, we could Zoom there. But, you know, I also have an easel with a whiteboard, so I don't think we necessarily have to go there. One of the kind of distracting things is with at the Judicial Center, the system vibrates when the heater or the air conditioning turns on. So it's like, you know, getting, it's just distracting to look at, but that doesn't mean we would have to use that projector. So just kind of thinking out loud. But I guess to the group, would it be helpful if we started to map it and made that visual as we're talking?
I think so.
I think it would too.
Are we able to do that on our screens?
Luann might be more of an expert on it, but I believe so.
I'm thinking so too.
Annotate. We might be constricted in that, you know, we're drawing on an, you know, electronic device, so that can be looks like we're doing Pictionaries or something. Could be a little bit, you know, difficult to kind of tell it's a circle or something. But even if we kind of had where we had some shapes already ongoing and then kind of just filled in the map as we went, that could be a way to do it electronically. So then we don't have, because anything that we would do on paper, we would still want to, what we did last time, I think, is just took photographs of those white sticky notes and then use that to actually build it on the computer. So I think we would be able to do both. It's just a matter of what our preference would be.
Well, if you want to ask Luann, I've got my tablet. So you know, you can write on your tablet, and if there's a way to link the tablet to the computer to where you guys will see what's being written.
Yes, you should be able to share your screen. We just need to give you permission when in the Zoom meeting itself, because by default we don't allow screen sharing, but the host can allow screen sharing, and that might be the best way. Either that or having a shared document that everyone can contribute to in Zoom. But you know, maybe if you just have your own, everybody has their own, anyone can share their screen then. And that will probably project the best onto Zoom as well. I think that would project better than a whiteboard in the background and trying to line up a camera to see that, for everyone to see it at the same time. Might be more challenging.
Yeah, that's a good point, Luann. Okay, so it does sound like we have the technology, the technical capability to share the screen. And Sheila, you can actually draw on your tablet and do things a little bit more freehand. Okay. Yeah,
I
because
actually could do it on the computer that I'm on right now too. It can be both. It's a 2-in-1 kind of thing, so I can do both. But yeah, we can work it out. Maybe Luann and I can talk beforehand or something.
Yeah, we'll do a test run.
Okay.
All right, so maybe we want Sheila to be our primary mapper, and then certainly holler out for questions or clarifications as you're attempting to draw it. Maybe I'll be the facilitator, because then I can also be able to switch screens. Now, Luann, we're not going to be, this is not going to be televised or broadcasted out, so
Okay.
that just means we don't need, I mean, it's just a little bit easier for us to share internally then, because we're
Sure.
not on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, then you can just maybe send me what your visual, your circles and squares and things you were talking about are. Maybe I can have that prepped ahead of time. If you have some kind of a format you're thinking about.
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay.
So are we mapping a deck case from when a kid is referred to human services all the way through a CHIPS case? Or are we going through, I guess, are we going into, if the parents are charged with neglect, what happens there? And like, are we incorporating family treatment court? And how far down the line are we going?
Well, I guess I envision us going as far down the line as a case could go. So we know that cases come to us in different ways. So it's really exploring those different ways. And then what can happen to a case? You know, a case can be, you know, it can just be, it doesn't move forward. And then some cases will move forward through the criminal process as well. And, you know, we do have the family treatment court now, so that can be kind of one of those things that should be on our map, because that's part of our system. Yeah, so, and we're trying to map it kind of locally, all the different options and things that could happen to a case, as far as here in Dunn County, who touches it, what can happen, what happens next, that kind of thing.
So if we're going into what happens to the parents if they're criminally charged, then we're basically going to our criminal mapping that we've done already, right? I mean, arrow, see above. It is.
Yeah, I guess, but I think that's an area that we heard from Carrie that, you know, just on that staffing update, that we probably want to talk more out loud a little bit as a group, really what happens with some of these cases when some of them are charged, some of them are not charged. You know, I think there's some things that we could learn there. And then also, how can those things kind of be looped already back into existing systems? So, right, you know, some of them would go to that map, you know, an arrow to the criminal map. But I think maybe if there's considerations in that would be different, or, you know, wouldn't just be purely criminal, because I'm thinking like mental health cases, those systems can be mapped too. And again, I'm just kind of talking out loud as far as what I kind of envision, I guess.
Do we have an electronic copy of what we already did for the criminal case?
Yes, yep, we do.
Okay. And do we have everyone we need coming?
Well, that's what I'd like to gather from the folks here today, to make sure that we've got the critical people. That's why we try to get that date out ahead of time for people to start getting those in the know, so they would be able to attend. So I did kind of see some of our human service partner, some newer names were given the information. I saw them respond, but I'm not sure from law enforcement how that's looking or how the information's been shared. And Chad's not here today. I don't know if Marshall can speak to the sheriff's department side.
Well, and do you want I think we've only had one, maybe two deck cases this year. Do you want the information from the ones we've had as far as, I'm assuming, how they were, reported, whether it was officer contact, reported through with us assisting human services, and then what our results were as far as forwarding for charges. Other than me, or maybe Kyle, you know, like I said, there's not much involved. Most of it's going through the human services side or the district attorney's side once we forward up charges after our initial, you know, involvement in it, depending on how it comes in, obviously, whether we're assisting or whether we take the initial information and work from there.
So Marshall, would you be then participating in the mapping?
Yeah, the only person other than me would be Kyle, and I don't know that he, you know, he has that much exposure, especially with the limited number we have. It could come in through anybody. I don't know that Kyle's even had one really recently, so I can pull up the data on the ones we already have from this year and provide the data of, you know, how it came in, where it went, and all that myself.
He's definitely had some recently, Marshall. So I think it would be good to have Kyle there. I mean, Lori and I, you know, invited basically our access worker, the initial assessment worker, the foster care coordinator, ongoing workers. I mean, we really invited the workers that are doing the work. So I think it would be helpful to have the guys there that, you know, that are out there, boots on the ground.
Yeah, that wouldn't be an issue. I would say Kyle would be my person then, and I can be with him.
Okay, so he is on the invite list and had the details as soon as we did. So at least it's on his calendar. Marshall, you want to reach out with a nice ask to see if he can join us?
Yeah, hopefully he's around. It's like we get him a day a week and then he's out on a COVID or something like that.
Yeah, and 3 hours is, you know, it's a chunk of time. So
no, he should be back Monday from this newest COVID quarantine. So I will, I'll talk with him then about it.
Carrie, do you think anyone else is needed from my office? Because I know Andrew, who you primarily work with, in court.
He'll be in court?
I think so, but I'll find out.
I think was he in a jury trial, Andrea? I think, did that get canceled? Is this next week, right?
I think it's next Wednesday.
yeah, it's already next Wednesday, 1 to 4.
I think he was supposed to have a jury trial that got canceled, but not to throw him to the wolves, but
You think
he's gonna be like, thanks, Lori.
I know.
He had 3 hours to catch up on stuff.
I know.
So he also has the invite. So Andrea, maybe you can, I guess, just connect with him to see if he's able. If you could join us, that would be great.
Okay, I'll find out. Is there anyone else we need?
Just thinking, Carrie and Lori, you mentioned your access worker, initial assessment, and the foster coordinator and ongoing workers. Do you have the names of those so I can be sure that they get the invite?
I can certainly send you the names. And I had like an intern who reached out and said, hey, is this something that I could participate in just as a learning opportunity? And I said, absolutely. So yeah. I can ship you out the names.
Okay, that sounds good. And then I will be sure that they've got all the meeting details.
Okay.
So I think we have everyone we need. Anyone else you think we're missing?
So Chad's not here today. I think hopefully Chad can join us. Is there anyone from the police department that we want to ask to join us in particular, or just leave it up to Chad?
I mean, maybe Chad wants to ask Samson too, if he would be willing to join or able.
Okay, got that down.
I don't know, Marshall, how often Rebecca Merrifield goes out too. It seems like she kind of gets thrown to us quite a bit too as the other investigator. I don't know, just as a backup if Kyle's not able to.
Yeah, I can make her aware. She kind of, with her forensic training, gets into a little more of the juvenile interviews, etc. So I could see if she'd be around too. It all depends on where we're at with our homicide investigation next week.
Right.
Consider what the city may want to consider the youth services officers too. That might be a first point of contact in the schools for the PD also.
Yeah, the resource officers. Yeah.
Okay, so hopefully then we'll have everyone, it's next Wednesday from 1 to 4. As far as determining next steps, this will keep us busy for a while, I think, as well as updating the website and trying to work with the school. So I don't think we meet again until sometime in January, and probably can set up a doodle poll for that. Anything else that we need to go over? Okay, so anyone want to make a motion to adjourn so we can try to get out of here by 4:30?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I second it.
All right. Given there's no, I guess we can vote. Is all in favor of adjourning the meeting? We vote by saying aye.
Aye.
No, we need to stay longer.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, so I